The holidays are coming.
I mean, why all stand around staring at each other in October
Right.
and then in November be like, and now we all die?
The emotional labor is something I don't think we talk enough about in
Mm,
retail, like having to present as happy and
mm.
friendly and welcoming all the time when you're not, and especially during the holidays.
I also love the game of like, what hairstyle will Becky have for this podcast
It's a
episode?
fun game for me too. All right. So, at the time of this episode dropping, we will be in late October, which means the holidays are coming. In Canada, we will have passed Thanksgiving. Our Thanksgiving is earlier, November or October, but then we go right into the Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all that stuff. So I thought it might be an opportune time to ask you about the holiday experience for store teams in retail. My first question for you, I feel like you're just brimming with stories.
Like, let me go.
Which you're more than welcome to. But I kind of want to I want to frame it. I want to start the episode by asking you, after the holiday rush, how is success measured by the company, by the boss, by corporate?
Really, for most companies, just by comp. Like, how did you comp your
Yeah.
Q? Well, most companies it's Q4, some companies it's Q2, depending on their fiscal year. But yeah, I feel like that's really the measure of success. Like right after when you take that first breath,
Mhm.
like the Monday after New Year's, like when everyone goes back to school and like holiday is over. Oh my God, that the breath you take that morning, that breath is different. The air is rare in that moment, but it is in that moment too that you also kind of know like how you did. Um, and yeah, I would say it's really measured by comp.
Yeah. And so basically, if you comped whatever goal higher, right, this year, it's considered we did it. Everyone in the
Yeah,
company is like, we did it.
exactly.
Interesting. Tell me more about the breath after. Are you excited about hitting those goals? Is it a mixed bag of emotions when you're finally able to breathe and feel your feelings?
I think it's complicated. I think if you hit your goal, it's like a good breath and you're ready to get back to like normal of like the everyday, but it's also like I think it's also a time where you're like, okay, and now I actually have a lot of work to do.
Right.
That's not holiday. Like I have to reassess my team, who's staying, who's going, did I lose people? If I have seasonal employees and I get to keep some of them, who am I keeping? How will I have those conversations? What does the store look like? Because now we need to like holiday the store and probably clean it in a way we haven't in a while. So there's still a lot to do. It's like you get to like that's why I said you take that one breath and then you're right back into like, okay, now what do I need to do?
Yeah. And I would love to dig into that because I really, I want to challenge the idea of what a successful holiday season looks like. So beyond comp, right? Goals, is the holiday a success if it's actually eroding engagement and retention, if it's contributing to the cycle that we talk about so often on this show?
I mean, obviously you and I would argue no.
Right.
I think a lot of retailers have that like built in though.
Yeah.
I think they've built in the turnover of holiday
Yeah.
and they sort of consider it like well, you just can't hack it. Like those people just like you didn't hire the right seasonals or that assistant manager we made go through 72 interviews. Uh, I guess we all made the wrong choice because they couldn't handle it rather than the deeper reflection of, because I think it's easier to admit you made a wrong hiring decision than it is to admit just the entire way you're operating is not good. Um, so I think when disengagement happens or when you lose people in that time period, it more goes to like those singular things that happened as hiring or promoting someone than it does like a a larger reflection of like what can holiday look like. Because I also think there's a lot of people that are like, holiday is like you know, it's intense and it's like by nature awful in a way. And you just have to tolerate that.
There's a massive influx of hiring for the holiday season, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I would argue though, most companies don't let people hire soon enough, but that's a whole other can of worms.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna ask before I just move on from that, like it's normal and fine. Is there something wrong with that process?
So the first year I worked holiday at um, Williams Sonoma, I followed the rule book exactly how you're supposed to in terms of holiday hiring, seasonal help. Um, and I can't remember the exact timeline, but essentially, like you can't hire till let's say it's like late October, early November.
Okay.
The problem is that like Williams Sonoma is a business that is really unique in the way it ramps up for holiday. Like I obviously can't share like percentages, but the amount of volume you do in a Williams Sonoma, like in the end of December versus the rest of the year, is actually the biggest delta of any company I've ever worked for. Um, because at a clothing retail, like say Old Navy, you have back to school, you have like Easter's a little bump, you have vacations, and you have Christmas, and obviously Christmas is the biggest bump.
Mhm.
But with all those other bumps, your teams actually get used to sort of like these ebbs and flows. Williams Sonoma is like you stand around selling one person a pan, a set of cookware on a Tuesday in the middle of June, and then Christmas comes and it's like 20 customers per associate. Like it's a vast difference. So that needs to be, first of all, your core team, you need to like prepare for that and be like, okay, like you can't have a 72-hour conversation over here about how beautiful this napkin is. Like I need you to keep it moving.
Right.
Um, but then also when it comes to hiring, Williams Sonoma is also a very like product knowledge rich environment. Like our ability to sell or talk to people about what they want or need is very dependent on a salesperson's knowledge of those products. Minus maybe like napkins. But even then, people, where was this made? Do you know the thread count? Like there's still questions. So, and those are the easiest things to sell. I mean, once you get to like a coffee maker or a pan, it becomes a lot more complicated. Can I use this on induction? Like, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, all of this to say that the first year I was there, I realized what a atrocious mistake it was listening to the rules. The following year, I ran over payroll for almost all of October egregiously. And then I was like, I'll just get in trouble. But by the time they like really realize what I've done, it will be too late and they can't do anything about it. And my second holiday there was essentially like record breaking for my store. And I don't want to say I changed the whole world because I did not. I will say though, they were I'm the reason I'm sharing the name of the company, which normally I don't do when I criticize a brand, is because in the like post holiday reflection, I was basically rewarded for that decision. And then they committed to like the store manager group that they would relook at how they did holiday hiring. Not just because of me. There are other leaders who made similar decisions. So I'm not claiming I like changed the way they operate, but I just did it because my first year was so chaotic and like stressful that I was like, I can't do that again. Because then and the register systems there are something. And so training people on that, and like literally the first year, I spent almost all of holiday on register myself. Not
Wow.
by myself, but like I didn't sell anything because I was like, I'm faster than most of these people. But anyway, all of that to say that
Okay.
like holiday hiring is also like they don't want to pay too much, obviously, in payroll in the buildup. But what they're not realizing is like it pays itself back in dividends when you get to the core of the that season.
Okay. So, yeah, the idea is that we'll save on labor by
Mhm.
hiring late, but the assumption is that they'll be able to be trained properly in time to handle the holiday quantity and pace of customers.
I mean, it's definitely like a trial by fire situation. And we all like recognize that. I think it's
Yeah.
also like you're kind of taught to like those employees won't know everything.
Yeah.
Like you kind of want them very specialized. So like kind of, very quickly realize what their skills are, what their strengths are, and then put them in that area
Mhm.
for the rest of the holiday. Like that's their zone. They're not going to be the person that knows like shipment and the register and the fitting room or whatever the scenario is. And if they are, you're probably going to keep them. Like if they figure that all out on their own, I mean, that's kind of how I mean, if you're a seasonal employee, and I actually used to be really transparent at some companies and say, like, I only have time to like really go into this, and this with you. If you figure out the rest of it, you pretty much guarantee like a full seat at the table forever.
Amazing. Okay, so we've already landed on one operational thing that corporate, the company policy, schedule, timeline um, doesn't get right or overlooks or could improve to support you and your teams during the holiday season. And that's really what I think would be really helpful to break down throughout this whole episode is what are they doing right? And like what's the
Mm.
good stuff? Where are the moments where they're actually helping you? And then what is the wrong stuff on the flip side? What kinds of corporate decisions make December, November, all those months harder than it needs to be, to your point, because you said we treat it like it has to be just insane chaos. And then also with the harder stuff, what's the domino effect? So what parts of these are contributing to the kind of paradoxes and challenges that retail as an industry has that we talk about endlessly in all episodes? So, where do you think is a good place to start? Do you want to talk about some good things that you've had happen
Yeah.
to you?
I think let's start with what's good. I mean, I think a lot of companies at this point, one of the things they have down to a science, I won't say everyone, but most places, bigger places especially, is preparing and like the calendar of things for the holiday. Like most retailers in somewhere around now, actually, we're recording this in September,
Mhm.
um, will start to talk about what's coming up for the holiday. And somewhere between now and when this episode lands, most of those places that I've worked will have released a calendar of events. Here are the days we're doing promos. Here's the day visuals have to launch. Like it is a full, comprehensive. Honestly, I wish they would do it for the whole year. I'm like, why can't I get this level of thought and planning all the time? Um, so you get this full calendar, and it's a way for you to plan for yourself, but also a way to plan labor and like think about who needs to be in what place. Because obviously, like a promo on a Saturday requires a very different schedule and very different planning than, say, a visual change on a Tuesday. So it gives you an opportunity to really look at like your resources, who's on your team, when will you need them, because even though, side note, most companies have like blackout days where you're not allowed to take time off in November and December. I think your accrual manager, if you actually follow that, because I sure as hell didn't. So I would look at that and go, okay, the visual changes on a Tuesday. I have a couple of visual people that were looking for like a Saturday off, and that time they're not supposed to be able to get one off. And I'm like, well, I need them really on the weekday for that. So we'll just happen to give them a Saturday off. And so, but anyway, it allows you to fully plan. So I think that's something they really do well is this is really comprehensive zoom out of almost the whole quarter of like, here it is. I think that's the best thing. And then
Oh wait, can
on
I
top,
interrupt you?
you're,
Can during the rest of the year, how much advance notice do you get about those kinds of things when it's not holidays?
um, it depends on the company, but I would say it's more month to month than a
Okay,
quarter.
gotcha.
And it's not as comprehensive. Like, because I think so much resource is put into the holiday. Um, like across companies, right? Because that's when most companies make the most sales and they do their most volume. And so corporate teams are so focused. I mean, corporate teams are talking about Christmas probably in like April.
Mm.
So if you think about it, like May, June, July, August, also a lot of people take in corporate land, take holidays in that time period.
Mhm.
So like there's like a whole like missing quarter, in my opinion. It's usually the summer where like no one is to be found.
Yeah.
And things are definitely happening a little differently. And then you like August comes and then it's like record scratch and everything changes. So I think that's partially why we don't get the planning because even when it comes to post holiday, a lot of companies can't even give you your. I think it's why some companies have their Q1 start in July. I've worked for a couple of companies now where like the year is June. I mean, sorry, July to June. Because when they do it,
Right.
well, February to January is how a lot of companies do it. They don't do it January to December. No one's going to make December 31st the last day of the fiscal year. That's crazy. I think my husband worked for one company was like that, and it was insane because then you had to do inventory on Christmas, New Year's Eve, which is insane. This is
Sure.
an insane ask. But so anyway, even when you do the February to January fiscal year, a lot of companies post holiday, even that 4 weeks before February 1st, not enough time to finalize the financial goals for that next year. So I have worked in several companies where it will be the third or fourth week of February and one time the first week of March before you ever get your goals. So you did a whole month and you have no idea until the end of the month, did I do well? Like, I mean, obviously at that point you go by comping, but like you don't know if that's a year that the company decided there should be like 10% growth across the board. Are they picturing a more challenging year economically for whatever reason? So it's a 2% growth across the board.
Right.
So you don't know what they're thinking. So you're just kind of going through February blind. And all of this to say, that's why I think the rest of the year doesn't look like that. So much focus is put in December, then we get out of December and like everyone takes a big breath. And then there's like a waiting to get to the next year, next quarter, whatever it is.
Right. Okay. Okay, helpful. So the planning, the comprehensive planning is a plus.
Hmm.
Anything else?
I mean, I think the no, I think the well, Old Navy, for example, not only planned, but they also did this really intelligent thing that I still to this day am like, wow, this is like, how is this not the norm? Where because they do so much volume, because it's like a lower price point, so you're going through a lot of inventory quickly.
Mhm.
October is actually quite busy in Old Navy, even though sales wise it's not, because that's when they front load a lot of inventory for Christmas.
Okay.
So they don't wait until Christmas is already here to give you the 9 bajillion cozy sweaters and pajama pants that you need. They give a lot of it to you in, and I've seen other companies like start to do that a little bit more because it just makes sense. We all know what we're going to sell. Why are we pretending that you need to wait? Just give it to me now. Because then what that allows is that allows you to have this like super in October, this super operational focus of like all hands on deck. We need to get shipment in, organized, um, onto the floor, wherever it's going, whatever. And then in November, when you turn around, it turns into like almost like, and now it's about selling and refilling, as opposed to trying to sell, refill, and do a bunch of shipment. Now, don't get me wrong, you still get a lot of shipment in those months because Old Navy is selling a lot of things,
Mhm.
but it's made a lot easier by that like sort of like really forward push um in the lead up.
Can you say a little bit more about why it's easier?
I mean, just in my brain, um as like a general manager, you're thinking of your store and all of these like different aspects.
Mhm.
You have sales, you have replenishment, you have shipment, you have omni sales now. So you have ship from store and BOPUS, and you have that, you're running a warehouse now. So you have all of these facets to your business. And being able to sort of like hone in on one or two during busier times really helps you execute much better. And not be stretched thin not only as a general manager but as a team, because in October you can take from your sales floor team because sales are a little slower because back to school is gone. Halloween is not like a clothing thing. Um, you know, until Old Navy starts to sell like massive amounts of costumes or something. I pray for them if they ever do that. But so then you can take some of your salespeople who might also be good at operations and be like, okay, for the next couple weeks, I'm going to have you in the back doing shipment.
Mhm.
Or rearranging the floor because Old Navy has like a standard visually for what it looks like the rest of the year, and then holidays, it's like very much the stack it high, watch it fly mentality. So you can like that requires rearranging walls and fixtures. And so like you can have that person maybe doing that instead of selling or being in the fitting room. You're like, hey, you're gonna max out the hanging sweaters all the way to the ceiling while they're doing shipment. And so you can move people to where you need them. Now it's November. You're not getting as much shipment. You leave your shipment team it is, and maybe on some of the slow days you even take one of them to do replenishment on the floor.
Mhm.
And you're just able to better utilize. I mean, why all stand around staring at each other in October
Right.
and then in November be like, and now we all die? It doesn't really make sense. And so that's where Old Navy like had that figured out pretty well.
Why don't other companies?
I mean, I think it's first of all, it requires an investment of people because we were allowed to hire people. Like holiday help there was like it was tracked and it was like you were managed to that. It was like, why didn't you hire the 37 people? It's it's October 22nd. You're supposed to have, I don't even remember the timeline, so I'm making up things right now, but like you're supposed to have 75% of your holiday hires hired.
Right.
Where are they? Why do you only have 50%? So they were actually the opposite of a lot of companies where they were like, no, no, you will hire more. Keep hiring. Um, so I think it's that investment, but I also think it's just like the retooling of the day-to-day operations at like fulfillment centers. Like they'd have to change how they do flow. Um, and I don't know that people want to or think about it. I think if you work at a company that you get one, I've worked for places that like get one delivery a month.
Mhm.
I've worked for other places that get obviously multiple shipments a week. And I think whatever cadence they're on, they just don't want to change it. Maybe they pay a delivery company X amount for X amount of service, and they don't want to like have to negotiate different contracts for different times of the year. I'm sure that's part of it. I'm sure there's like complexities that I don't see as a store leader. I still
Mhm.
think those are all BS reasons to not make it easier for field teams, but I want to make it clear in this episode at least that I understand that there are things that are more difficult to change than just snapping your fingers. I just know it can be done. So to your point, I
Yeah.
think it's just that it would be inconvenient for somebody.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what I wanted to poke at it a little bit right now is like I'm often shocked by some of the just really simple things that have just never been said out loud. Like
Hmm.
about the problems between, in retail and just that corporate leaders haven't heard from store managers.
Well, and I think when it comes to specifically deliveries, which is like a point of contention for me in a lot of brands I've worked in for so many reasons, the way things are done in terms of shipment, because you have companies that use like a UPS or a FedEx because they've determined that for their volume, that is what makes sense. Then there's the companies that have third party like shipping people, truckers delivering things. And then there's the companies, much more rare, but does exist. Then you have the companies that own their own thing from warehouse all the way to destination. Those places have no excuse, in my opinion, to not do what they need to be doing because you you're paying everyone's salary across
Right.
the board.
Yeah.
I think it's the other two options though where people struggle because if you have a contract with a trucking company, you'd have to change your contract for a quarter, and I'm sure that that's not easy, especially in the busiest quarter for everybody. So I think a lot of it is like a back end cost and labor and renegotiation of contracts that is messy.
Hmm.
And I think that companies like Old Navy, and again, they're not perfect, but I think that they figured out that whatever messiness that entailed, they were like, it would be much messier to not do it. So someone's got to figure this out. And again, I think I've said this on a podcast episode. Old Navy is probably the only company I've ever worked for where I felt like, hot take, I felt like we need like a little alert. I want to be like a tacky radio show where I have like a button that I can hit. Um, hot take incoming.
Here comes the lawyers.
Here comes, yeah, that's going to be my other one. Um, but so Old Navy is probably one of the only companies I've ever worked for where it felt like the people in corporate not only felt like they were like working alongside me, it also felt like they had the same amount of pressure on them to perform as a store leader. I don't think I've ever said that
Mm.
directly, but it
Yeah.
felt like someone was also telling them, okay, well, stores have to do this, but you also have to make this happen for the stores. So go. And I, again, I didn't have visibility to that, but they must have been saying that because sometimes things just happened and you were like, oh, someone made this happen. Great. And I can't say that that's true across the board.
Yeah, well, to the messy point, right? It's only messy once.
Yeah.
It's only
And
messy until you do it one time, and then you have another process.
and I think the trickier part about keeping your shipment the way it's always been is I've actually worked for a couple of companies where you place your own orders. And if they keep the cadence of deliveries the same and you're ordering, you also then have to become really adept at like inventory planning for much larger volume. And the thing is with more volume becomes more unpredictability about what you're going to sell and in what quantities when you're dealing with hundreds of SKUs. For example, I worked somewhere where we placed our own orders and I only got an order once every week, but I had to place it like 14 days ahead of time.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden now, what I thought might be trending, or like there's a random product that went viral on TikTok, and now I've already ordered what I'm going to get for the end of the month. Like I'm missing so many weeks of good sales because I can't react fast enough. So if you're only delivering certain amounts, and this does happen everywhere, every company, because there's a certain level of, especially with social media, of unpredictability of what's going to all of a sudden be like the hot thing. I mean, even at Williams Sonoma, we used to joke as a team, even outside of holiday, you would have an item that you have never sold in your life. Like you've never seen someone buy one, or maybe like once, like a strawberry color. And then all of a sudden, you'd get like 10 people in the span of 3 days who were like, do you carry a strawberry huller? So we started, because it just made it more fun for us as a team. If we got asked for something like 6 or 7 times in a short period of time, we started asking people, is there a recipe in a magazine that said you need this? Like,
Yeah.
where are you getting this? Because there's no way you just organically need this item right now. And so does everybody else. Um, and so that unpredictability also plays a part in like why you need to be a little bit more fluid and change the way you do things from the rest of the year.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. So, and what I think will be a nice segue into the common things that corporate overlooks or gets wrong during the holiday season. What I thought was going to be a good thing, it turns out it's not really true. So, when we were chatting about this episode, I had said, "Is there even going to be enough to talk about because corporate leaves you alone?" during the holidays. And I think that's partly because I remember your one story about specifically the day of Black Friday being like, at least that day,
Mhm.
they leave us alone. And I think my brain, because I work with, corporate teams and because it's said all the time that at least December is a blackout month in terms of comms, new initiatives, things like that. I just assumed the optimist in me assumed that like that was the case for at least that whole month.
I
Turns
would
out maybe
say,
not.
yeah, I did laugh at the message. And I shared with you before we started recording, I shared it with my husband, and the look on his face. Um, and side note, I will share his story that he shared with me. He worked for a company that midday on Black Friday, and this is not a small brand that he worked for. I just want to make that clear. This is not
Mhm.
like mom and pop shop. This is like a brand everyone on this podcast would know. They changed the promo on Black Friday midday and made them change signs and had to like update the registers and like midday Black Friday because they weren't doing the performance they thought they should be doing. So they were like, clearly this wasn't a good enough promo. And then they changed the promo. And then people from earlier in the morning who were still in the mall saw that the promo changed
Oh
and came
no.
back to exchange and get the price difference. Um,
So they planned this. They knew that they might do this. Like,
I don't, I mean, it seemed so fast
mhm.
that he's not sure if it was planned or not, but it was in reaction to like, okay, we opened at 5 a.m. in most malls. It's now 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. We should be at X percentage of sales for the day, and we're not.
Right.
So we need to be more aggressive. So yeah, uh, that's just one small story. I think also though, some companies are good at leaving you alone with comms, but then love a surprise Christmas visit. Like, love it. And then there's like, the group chats are going off because they're like, oh my God, Sarah, the VP, is in the store 3 miles away from me. Is she going to come here next, or is she going to go north or south? And then there's like that store texts you and is like, the group chat and is like, she just left. And then you're like, there's that 20 minutes it takes to get to either store. And you're like, which one is it? And like, as the manager, you're just doing loops around your store and like keeping your eye on the front window, but not too obviously because like you don't want to know that she was coming and you want to be casual about it. So then you
Mhm.
like see her in the mall and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go actually further back in my store. So this can be more natural. And then you like see her come in and you're like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. Like it's a whole game you got to play on like the second or third Saturday of December. So while they might leave you alone in official comms channels, they don't, they, so many companies love a visit like that. And a lot of people will tell you it's not to catch you doing anything wrong. And here's the thing, even when it's not, it doesn't feel great in that moment because you're like, depending on how busy you were, the state of your store, like there's so many things. And I think I've shared this story on this podcast, so I don't want to share it again. But it was during holiday and a very busy day at Old Navy. Um, and I'll say it just because, I mean, he knows I say it with love. But like Brian, who was our regional, like came in, and I was in a mood. I'll be transparent. I was in a mood. It might have been pajama day. It was pajama day because I wasn't wearing pajamas. And he was like, "You're not wearing pajamas and you seem like whatever." And he was like, "And it's kind of affecting your team." And he's like, "What can I do to help you in this moment?" And I was like, "You can leave my store. That will help me in this moment. That's what you can do." And shout out to Brian because he left my store. And he said, "Okay, but I expect results if you're going to kick me out of your store." And he left. My DM, who was not part of this visit, called the store like 5 minutes later and was like, "What did you just do?" She basically was treating me like I was insane. But that is what I needed. Like, I need you to leave because, like, it's not. I don't have time for the dog and pony show today, and that's what's annoying me because, like, the second I found out he was even in the area, I literally was like, "Why? Like, what can you pop? Like, unless you're gonna start folding a table, get the hell out." And so, which is what I wanted to say, and I think that is one of the things that puts a lot of pressure. And then in terms of comms as well, there are promo changes, which I understand from like a business isn't doing the way you want it to do. And there are also visual changes sometimes in December. Like if you put, if they decide like some sort of sweater or, cookware or whatever business you're in is going to be the thing this holiday season. And then like a
Mhm.
couple of days into the holiday season, it's not the thing.
Mhm.
There is this like 911 alert of like, and it usually doesn't come through email. It usually comes directly from your DM via like text or call. Like, I have been notified that we need to immediately change XYZ. It needs to happen by 7 p.m. tonight. I need pictures at 7:01. If I don't have them, I'll be harassing you. And I just like really need to say to all those companies, no money has ever been made from, I don't care what the promo change or the visual change is. Like
Yeah.
that is purely a decision that's making someone in the corporate realm feel like they're more in control and that like they've like it's almost like they're reacting to their boss, like
Mhm.
maybe a CEO or a CFO or whoever is like knits aren't selling the way there should be selling in the fourth quarter. What are we doing? What does visual look like? And then everyone gets attacked, right? Like the visual department is probably like, this is just me imagining what's happening before I get the message. I'm sure the visual department's scrambling and they're like, well, we thought this looked good. Nah. And then, the buyers are like, well, no, blue is the thing and that's why it's the color. And then there's this like scramble to be like, whose fault is this? And then it like funnels down to like, what we need to do to fix this? We need to just move everything in the store on December 8th at 7 p.m. And the thing is like, I try really hard. It's taken me a long time to do this well, but I try really hard as a store leader to like make sure my team has a life during that time period, but also that I have a life. Like
Mhm.
I buy theater tickets to go see like maybe not the Nutcracker because I don't want to be bored. But to something Christmassy
Mhm.
and maybe I go to a concert or like a holiday market. Like I make sure to like carve that time out for myself.
Mhm.
And while I've never allowed a last minute change to get in the way of those tickets or that thing that I, said I'm going to go to, it has ruined my mood during several of those things. And
Mhm.
one could argue that's my fault because I'm in charge of my mood, whatever. Um, but like it ruins my mood because I know to be true after almost 2 decades in this business that I'm going to get back in a couple of days and sales are not going to magically increase. Like
Right.
maybe they increase incrementally, but nothing that warranted the level of emergency that was acted. Like I didn't need to go to the Nutcracker and now be bored and have to think about how terrible you all are and how stupid you all are. Like
Yeah.
so that is like something that's really I think to give people credit, I think there is an intention to leave stores alone during that period.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that everything is moving so fast, right? You're doing more numbers, online is busier, the warehouse is busier, everything is busier. And I think when something goes wrong, it's almost like people at that level think that there is no time to stop and think. And I would argue that that is exactly the moment you should take. Like I would, and again, I'm not in those rooms, but I would love to know that there's like some leader out there that would basically make everyone pause and be like, everyone stop what you're doing. Put your phone down. We're going to have a 45-minute emergency meeting. If you want to make something emergency, make that the emergency. And we're not going to look at anything for 45 minutes. And we're just going to calmly talk about what are the best strategies to counteract performance that is not where we want it to be, because I think it's just like this domino of like, and this and this and this, and maybe we do 2 for 1, and then if we do the 2 for 1, and then we move the blue sweaters to zone 2, and then those other sweaters up to zone 1, and then we'll do the other thing, and then that will do it, and then everyone's like, yeah, that, because that's an action, and that makes us feel like action does make us feel like we're
Yeah.
working towards something, and that's I want every corporate person listening to know that all of us in the field know that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, however stupid you think we are, we know that you're like just moving something to move it to feel like, well, if sales are still down, then I guess it's just the economy. And I guess we can't do anything about it. And now we can lay the blame at the stores because they're not hustling the way they should be hustling.
Oh my God. Okay, there's so much I want to like unpack in that. First, just like was screaming to me when you were talking about the pajama thing. And at first, it was comical to think of you in a bad mood in pajamas. Like I knew you weren't, but like you you begrudgingly changing into pajamas is a really funny visual. But then it kind of occurred to me that like just the emotional labor is something I don't think we talk enough about in
Mm,
retail, like having to present as happy and
mm.
friendly and welcoming all the time when you're not. No one is all the time. So yeah, just like why aren't you having fun in your pajamas? And your pajama day is just really brings that to light, I feel like. And especially during the holidays, right? When it's just bananas, and holidays are a tough time for a lot of people for all kinds of reasons. But when you're in retail, you have to show up and you have to smile and sell and be
Mhm.
full of good cheer. So, just a moment for the emotional labor that people in stores have to put forward because you
And
do
it's
not have
funny,
to do that in corporate.
part of the reason I wasn't in pajamas that day is actually just because I don't think I realized this at the moment. I just really I'd never even bought pajamas. I never like
Yeah.
purchased them. So I didn't even have them because I had such like decision fatigue from all of the decisions I'd been making. I literally like 3 days before was going to buy the pajamas. And I was like, I don't even know which ones I like. I like can't even, the thought of even having to like pick out a pair of pajamas was
Yeah.
too overwhelming. And those were the days where I would go home and say to my husband, I am hungry. I cannot choose. Something needs to just show up. Order it, cook it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like no more decisions. And so I think like that. And for me, it's like I don't need to be in pajamas for my team to know that I'm fun. But
Yeah.
that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I could picture it vividly when you were talking about, changing promos on Black Friday or changing things in December. I feel like this is part of what has become like the engagement industrial complex. Like I'm just picturing all these tech apps companies being like, and you can track by the hour. And if the sales aren't where you know they need to be in that hour, you can quickly change. Like you can change promos and you can change and just like, right? It sounds like good. It sounds like good agile business, but it doesn't really work out that way for store teams when like ultimately you are the ones who physically have to do all the things.
And I think also though that not only does it not do if you want to use data as someone who
Hmm.
loves data and loves numbers, to an excruciating uh, level. If you change things too fast, you actually ruin your data. You don't know
Yeah,
what's working or what's not working,
right.
because you haven't done your collection duties correctly. You need something to exist for a minute, um, or more than a minute.
Mhm.
In terms of like visual, I think sometimes companies react to like certain things really quickly. And for me, if it hasn't been there for a full week, we don't know anything at all.
Mhm.
If you made me change something on a Monday, you don't know anything on Thursday because
Right.
I would argue you don't have enough foot traffic to know whether it's working or not because that foot traffic is your data point and you need a full weekend with the weekdays to know. And then if you have different, business on a Saturday than on a Tuesday, and then maybe there is something there because maybe your shopper on a weekday is a mom and has her kids, and then on the weekend it's like a group of teens. So that visual or that promo is hitting those two different groups differently. But you can't know any of that if every 3 days you're deciding to switch because now the thing that might have worked for the teens coming in on the Saturday that you had on the Monday, you're changing to the thing for the moms and now they're not here on the Saturday. Like you don't know anything because you're reacting too quickly, and companies are so afraid of just sitting with what's happening for a minute and being like,
Mhm.
okay, what is happening? First of all, what is happening? Do we even know what's happening? Have we even asked a store? Like,
Yeah.
have we created an environment? We've talked about this before, but have we also created an environment where we can just ask stores candidly, what is the reaction to X? And we need to create an environment where store leaders can be like, every time someone walks in the door, they laugh. Like, so I work somewhere, this was not during holiday, but I work somewhere uh, that is known for its denim, hint, hint. And they had this men's collection that was perhaps one of the most atrocious things I've ever seen in my retail career. So not for denim, but for like shirts. And there was a full men's poncho that was red, like a rain poncho, covered in tigers. What? Why? For who? For who? There was a lot of like neon happening. Why? Are we going to an EDM rave? Am I doing shrooms? What's happening? And we all laughed at it. And it became a joke because people would come in looking for their sort of like classic American preppy and they were like, "Wait, what?" Like, and men's business was down. And it was like everyone in the company, it was like the emperor with no clothes. We were all supposed to pretend that this was normal.
Mhm.
And eventually, I think that buyer got fired because everything changed, but we never talked about it. We never, of course, we blamed stores because we are like, what? Like, I will never forget one of the visual people coming in and trying to like convince us that things were cute. He was wearing it all. And I'm like, you look insane. Like, you look unwell. Like, you may have had some sort of like concussion or CTE or some sort of traumatic brain injury that made you think that
Mhm.
this was cute. And so, and honestly, if it was in another store, it might actually have been fine. But in this store, it didn't make sense because it just wasn't the vibe. And so it's things like that, though, that we don't talk about or like we're not allowed to talk about. But my whole point to saying this was like, if in that brand, and no one felt comfortable doing this, it was not the brand for that. Um, anyway, I'm
Oh
like
man,
holding my breath.
flashback.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, because there wasn't a culture there where you could be honest. And so because of that, no one was just saying the so obvious thing of like, what is this?
Mhm.
And honestly, it shouldn't even have gotten to stores.
Right.
Someone should have seen it in the visual book and been like, excuse me?
Mhm.
Highlighter yellow shirts? For who? For like Joe Dirt who shops here? No, that's not going to work. So my point in that though is when something is happening in holiday performance wise that is not going your way,
Mhm.
like stopping and being like, you know what? And here's what I don't understand. I would love this is a hot take. Hit the button. Um, for retail executives to call stores directly more often. Please give me a call. Don't go
Mhm.
through the chain of command. Don't send me an email. Just call the store. I'm here. You know I'm here. The store's number is publicly listed. Google it if you don't have it. Call me. Say, hey, can I speak to Matt? I'm sure there's some master list of who's the GM of every store, and you can find my name
Mhm.
and be like, hey, I'm so and so from whatever. How's the front table doing? What are people's reactions? And if we've created a good culture, if I'm in that Tiger Poncho situation, I should be able to be like, girl, who who did this? What's happening? We have people laughing at us. Like we have people actually walking into the store and being like putting it on in the fitting room as a joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that conversation is allowed to happen,
Mhm.
that means that executive, maybe he calls a couple other stores, gets similar feedback. That takes him 25 minutes. Okay. Now
Mhm.
he knows though, okay, this is a product problem. how do we fix a product problem when we don't have a lot of time to fix a product problem? Is there, do we have to move forward spring? Like,
Mhm.
do we just have to put some spring in stores and hope that that will sell because it's a better, like, I'm saying if this is December, like,
Yeah.
because I know they already have it made, like,
Mhm.
it's ready and waiting. Now, that
Mhm.
might mess up spring, but that's a spring problem at this point. You're trying to fix the current problem.
Mhm.
Or is there like, do we have a collection in like the back of the store that really should go in the front and we should hide this atrociousness? That's the case where a visual move really would work. But that's where you need to call a store. You need to know why. How can you fix the problem if you don't know why? And the numbers can't tell you why. They cannot. Because is the
Mhm.
front table also not doing well because people are like, wait, we're X brand. Who do we think we are charging $90 for a sweater? Like, is that the problem? Is it purely a price thing? So even with like a 50% off promo and now it's $45, people are like, absolutely not. I'm not spending, this brand does not deserve this much money, or I just don't equate this with whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
What is it? Because once you know because in that scenario, you're not going to have a new promo because you don't want to devalue your brand and make that sweater 70% off. You're going
Mhm.
to have us rip the stickers off and reprice them for a new original price of 70, keep the 50% off promo, and now they're $35. So, and I
Mhm.
would argue that if you make us do that, that's going to be a change that's welcomed at the store because even though it's a pain in the ass and I don't have a lot of time,
Mhm.
I'm going to be like, oh, okay. They find someone, finally, they realize this is ridiculous. But instead, with that ugly collection, you have me put it on promo. And that expensive sweater collection, you make me move to the back. Like you're doing the opposite of what you should be doing in certain situations because you asked no one why.
Yeah, and I think that comes out in other like we say this all the time about engagement surveys.
Mm-hmm.
It is not normal in any other industry or function to pour endless time and money into a solution when you don't understand the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, apparently in this situation, and then in terms of employee engagement survey reactions, same deal. Okay, so as we're coming close to wrapping this up, a couple things I want to ask you about, and then I will open it up to make sure that you get everything out of your system. um, but the point about one, the call,
Mm-hmm.
and two, the difference between the call and the visit, the
Mm-hmm.
surprise visit during that time. For one, I just think it's interesting because we know there's a lot of talk on LinkedIn and other places about how executives need to spend more time in stores. And I've even seen specifically, yeah, you should have to spend a whole week during December in stores to understand how it's what's really going on. I don't know that is going to be an experience that's going to help you or them or the company at all. Largely because of the psychological safety or lack thereof that you just touched on, right? With it's not having the culture where you can say something. But like, talk to me about that. How would you feel if a VP was like, okay, yeah, to better understand things, I'm going to spend a week in December in your store.
The only way they can come to my store for a week is if I get to tell them what to do. Not because I want to boss them around and feel power, but because it's
Mhm.
not an authentic experience if you're coming into my store and you're just gonna like take up space or be in the way. Like you'd need to really
Right.
do it. And in all honesty, I don't I don't think that that's what I need. And you know, you've actually helped me. I don't want to say convince me of that, but really like dig deep because I used to be that person who was like, they need to spend all the time. And the more I think about it, I'm like, no, I think they just need empathy and to trust us and then to listen.
Yeah.
Um, and if they do all of those things, I don't even need to ever see you in my life. You could be in Cabo in a 5-star resort. And as long as you make stuff happen for me that I need to happen, quite frankly, I
Mhm.
don't need to ever know what you look like.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that is the part where I come and I say, just just call the store.
Mhm.
Um, because if we've built the culture where you can just call and I can give you the honest answer, you can make something happen. And you don't need to be in my store for that.
Mhm.
You don't need to see. Because what am I going to do? Have you come in for a surprise visit? And then are you really going to stand there in the front with me for 2 hours straight and listen to people talk about the product so you believe me? Or you could just believe me. And I think a lot of times the reason the belief isn't there is because it's almost like, well, that's your excuse for why you're not selling the sweater. And it's like, no, the tiger poncho is ugly. I'm still traumatized by the tiger poncho, if you can't tell.
Tiger Poncho's going on the thumbnail.
Yeah, like, so you just have to believe that what I'm saying. I mean, I remember I came up with like a whole dossier at Williams Sonoma because I was so annoyed by like not being believed about something about like our clients and what product they want that I literally created like it was basically a binder of like, here is the stats of our town and the surrounding towns and who lives here and shops here and what they're like, how many homes they own and like whatever. Because it was like you kept trying to explain it and it's like, oh, that's your excuse why you can't. I'm like, no, no, it's not my excuse. I mean, it's why, partially why, and I've said this so many times, but it's why I try to get to number one everywhere I ever go.
Yeah.
Because I just know that number one is how you're listened to. Because when I'm number one, you'll believe what I'm saying when I'm critiquing something, because you'll be like, oh my God, well, number one would never say this unless it wasn't true, because you've already gotten to the highest place you can get. Um, I am not driven by bonuses or even the accolade of number one. I'm driven by, oh my God, if I just get there, I can actually be the person who runs this business. Because then you're going to be like, oh, you're number one, so you must know it all. What do you have to say? We're listening. And it's like, at that point, I'm usually annoyed because I'm like, well, now you're listening. Um, but so, yeah, I think they don't need to, all of this to say, they don't need to spend time in our stores. They just need to trust that we know our stores. And then they need to just give us a call and be like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And let us answer honestly. And then they need to make some stuff happen from the information we're giving them.
Yeah. Okay. And then kind of finally, all the things you've been talking about, just to really bring it home and make sure everyone understands what we're getting at, the tasks, the resets, the promos, how much of that extra workload felt like it helped the customer?
A tiny, tiny percent, if any. Um, because I mean, that's who we haven't really talked about in this entire episode. But in all of that busyness and all that chaos, I mean, that's why, I mean, just walk into anyone listening. Let's wait a couple months, walk into a store on a weekday. I want you to walk in a store on a weekday in December. And I want you to just observe the employees and what they're doing. Someone's going to greet you at the door, probably, but it's going to be like a passerby as they like push a cart of things because there's some change happening. And as someone who works in retail, it horrifies me. And like, I just have like knowing laughter at it because I'm like, wow, that person is so stressed right now.
Mhm.
And like, when you look at it objectively, like just remove yourself from all of it, especially when I go into other stores, I'm like, this is actually on its face ridiculous. Um, but so you're being ignored though, because they're pushing around carts and things and you can see the sort of, even when they're good, you can see the sort of like stress communication happening between them, like the like frantic, like, so after you're done covering the fitting room for Johnny's break, I'm going to need you to go out back and there's those 80 sweaters on the rack. And then we need to put the 80 sweaters in the front where the blue sweaters are. And then we're going to move this blue sweaters, but they want the blue sweaters hung now. I think we have 80 hangers, but we might not. If we don't, you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to unhang some of the other things that are in the back and put them on the shelf. And then we can get the hangers and then you can hang those blue sweaters and the blue sweaters are going to go above the gray pants. And then the gray pants, they're going to stay there, but then the shoes below them, you're going to want to move those. And then there's a bag to the side. And I think I repriced them, but if you want to double check, because I don't know, but I have about 3 things to do and I have another interview for a seasonal employee. And then I'm going to go to lunch and I hope I can get a lunch. But if I can't get a lunch, I'm just going to eat like a Snickers bar really quickly and then that will be okay. And then I'm going to try to leave at 5 today because I promised Jimmy that we would go to this like cute little holiday thing together, but I don't know if we're going to make it. So I might have to cancel, but I should know by 4:30. And if you want to check in with me when we've done that, I think we'll be okay. Um, and that feels like I'm just making things up, but that is the look on your face. Right.
My blood pressure.
But that is like a real thing you can witness in a store. And
Mhm.
all of what I just said is said with like almost like this like really tense smile. Like
Mhm.
as people are trying to, because they know customers are walking by. So they want to make it seem like they're not dying inside. Um,
Mhm.
Spoiler alert, they're dying inside. But like I have actually seen that, and it's funny because I mean it's not funny, but when I see it elsewhere, it actually makes me lower my own stress level because I'm like, this is actually just ridiculous on his face. The fact that we're all getting so overworked about the blue sweater that now needs to be hung. Like, I don't, it's just so ridiculous. But yeah, it's not in service of the customer. It's in service of the money, which we wrongly equate with being in service of the customer. I mean, imagine, and I'm not saying this is the answer, but imagine instead companies were like, business is not the way we want it to be. Let's try something really radical. We want you today, right now, for the next 4 hours, no one's allowed to task, and everyone just needs to go help a human. Like, I would argue you could see a sales bump there because people who are shopping hectically during holiday are also in that same rush. I mean, this is a separate podcast where I like lambast our culture of like constantly being in a rush and doing too many things. But the customers are just as bad. I mean, they're on their phone at the same time, like, and then I'm going to pick up that gift for so and so, and then I'm not going to do the whole skit again. But you know what I'm saying? They're doing the same exact rush talking, so many things to do. And so if they can't find the blue sweater, because now it's not up front where they remember it was last Monday, because the person is hanging it in the fitting room, and they're not going in the fitting room, they're buying gifts because that's where the hangers are. They're like, I swear there was a blue sweater, but no one's helping them because they're too busy doing all the things. And so they
Yeah.
just leave. And oftentimes, and this is the point I actually made in several companies. If people can't find or we don't have the thing that brought them, they are abandoning their whole cart because a lot of Americans want to go one place for all of the things. You can judge that. You can think it's wrong. Doesn't matter. Don't care. You know, I had to explain to Williams Sonoma why I would lose pan sales because we don't have oyster knives. Well, because Crate and Barrel has oyster knives and they just want to get all of the things at once. So I'm missing out on a $200 sale because I don't have a $10 item. Because they walk in and go, do you have oyster knives? No. Okay. And then I watched them walk out of Crate and Barrel, which at the time was like, I could literally watch people. And they'd
Yeah.
come out with like 3 big bags. And I'm like, great. I lost maybe $1,000 worth of sales because I didn't have a $10 item. But the same thing happens during holiday, not just because you don't have something, but also because someone can't find something. Because we're
Yep.
not prioritizing, does everyone in this store right now, can they find everything they need? Like, which you would think, is like the most basic low level retail expectation. And the problem is that companies pretend that we know in the field that that is the base level expectation. They're like, well, you know, like, you know, if you get a bad review or something and someone didn't get spoken to or whatever, they're like, but you know, like blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, I don't know because when I get 30 emails and a surprise visit and a promo change, nothing about any of that tells me that the customer is our focus or our priority. In fact, you're implicitly telling me quite the opposite, that they just happen to be in the store and sort of just there while I have all these other things to do.
Yeah. Going back to the corporate experience taking precedent over the customer experience, even if corporate thinks that what they're doing is in service to the customer.
Hmm.
All the tasking is really just taking you away from providing a good focused experience.
Hmm.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
My final thought is actually about post holiday. I think some companies have done a good job. I've seen it a couple of times happen of doing sort of like a holiday post-mortem
Mm.
with store leaders, like what worked, what didn't work, what should we change. And I think we need more of that in retail, and we need you to actually change it. Like it would be great. And this has happened a couple of times. So like it's not like it's never happened. But you know how amazing it feels when you mention 20 things you think could be better and even two of them change the next holiday? You were like, wow, they actually did something about this. That's amazing. And that's the thing is the field expectation of corporate is so incredibly low that if you just did 10% of what is asked for, you would be the best DM, RM, VP, CEO, any field leader has ever worked for, because they'd be like, wow, they changed it. Like the bar is low. I mean, your ability to impact the field experience is quite, I don't want to say easy, but it's very tangible because most retail leaders are jaded in the sense of, well, nothing's going to change. This is just how it is. Um, and I mean, maybe I'll give you some feedback, but you're not going to do anything about it. So, but there's still the Matts of the world who will tell you the 85 things you can change, regardless of how jaded I am. Um, and if you just did a couple of them, people would not only be happy, they would share more. And if you love data so much, that's more data. And you'd get more and it just and then you get better and better as a company because that's a cycle. But all it takes to start that beautiful cycle where everything gets better, customers get better service, you make more money, you're in Cabo more often, or wherever you like to take your little golden parachute. Um, and all of that happens all because you start by changing something that needs to be changed that you heard needs to be changed. That's the beginning of this beautiful cycle.
Yeah, I think that's perfect place to leave it. And I sense a follow-up episode coming up where we dig into what some of those things might be. Maybe we can even run some kind of poll
Mm.
post-holiday where we ask store leaders what needs to change and we unpack those things. Well, I was going to say happy holidays, but if that would make sense by the time this airs, may your blackout month be truly blacked out.
I love that.
My new retail holiday send off. Thanks as always, Matt.
Thank you.
You're listening to Dear Corporate, Love Stores.